In a world meticulously constructed of data, algorithms, and logical progression, Leo Vance was a high priest. His sanctuary was a clean, minimalist apartment. His scriptures were lines of code, and his prayers were the silent hum of servers. At 30 years old, Leo was the epitome of organized thought, a man for whom chaos was merely an unquantified variable. He crunched numbers for a living, unraveling complex datasets for a major tech firm, finding patterns where others saw only static. His mind was a finely tuned instrument calibrated for precision. This wasn't a man who believed in ghosts, fate, or cosmic coincidences. To Leo, everything had an explanation, a root cause, a logical sequence. This unwavering adherence to rationality would become both his greatest strength and his most terrifying vulnerability. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly on a Tuesday morning at exactly 7:47 a.m. Leo was pouring himself a fresh cup of coffee, his routine as ingrained as the circuits on a motherboard. He took a sip, set the mug down on the pristine white counter, and turned to retrieve his laptop. When he returned barely a minute later, the mug was, inexplicably, brimming full again, steaming gently as if untouched. Leo paused, a faint crease forming between his brows. He was certain he had taken a sip. He was equally certain he hadn't refilled it. He dismissed it as a momentary lapse, a trick of a tired mind. His internal debugger flagged it, but assigned it a low priority. Later that day, while reviewing lines of code, his colleague, Mark, repeated a sentence verbatim, word for word, with the exact same inflection that he had spoken mere seconds before. "We need to optimize this query for better load times, Leo." Leo had nodded, already processing the information. Then, 10 seconds later, Mark looked at him again, eyes blinking, and said, "We need to optimize this query for better load times, Leo." The world seemed to stutter, a scratched record skipping back a groove. Leo stared, a chill prickling his skin. Mark, oblivious, continued his work. Leo checked his watch. No, it wasn't déjà vu. This was different. This was a rerun. The glitches became more frequent, more pronounced. A pedestrian waiting at a crosswalk, frozen in a single frame. A statue amidst the flowing tide of humanity, only to vanish when Leo blinked and looked again. A newspaper headline changing subtly. A word swapped, a date shifted, only to revert to its original form moments later. A familiar street sign suddenly bearing a nonsensical name, then correcting itself as he drove past. Leo, ever the pragmatist, initially sought rational explanations. Fatigue, stress, early signs of a neurological issue. He scheduled a doctor's appointment, downloaded brain training apps, adjusted his diet, but the glitches persisted, mocking his attempts at logical dismissal. His clean apartment, once a bastion of order, began to feel like a data stream riddled with corrupted packets. His carefully curated life, a program running smoothly, was now experiencing unexpected exceptions. He started a digital bug log, a meticulous record of every anomaly, date, time, description, his emotional state, and any possible environmental factors. It was a compulsion, a desperate attempt to find the pattern, the underlying algorithm behind the madness. He wasn't looking for proof of the supernatural. He was looking for the flaw in the system, and the system, it seemed, was beginning to notice his debugging efforts. He didn't realize it then, but each recorded glitch was a ping, a signal echoing through the unseen layers of reality, attracting the attention of its silent custodians. He was pulling back the curtain, and those who operated the machinery of existence did not appreciate curious users. Chloe Ramirez, his best friend and the vibrant, grounding force in his life, noticed the change first. Leo, usually impeccably dressed, began to appear disheveled. His eyes, once sharp and focused, were now perpetually shadowed, restless, darting around as if searching for something invisible. His conversations became fragmented, punctuated by long pauses where his gaze would drift, analyzing empty spaces. Chloe, a graphic designer with a pragmatic streak and a contagious laugh, initially attributed it to work stress. "Leo, you're going to burn out," she'd chide, trying to pull him away from his screens. "Come on, let's go for a walk, grab some food. You need a break from all that code." But Leo couldn't break away. He was hooked, a detective on the trail of the most profound mystery imaginable. He was debugging reality itself, and the deeper he delved, the more the fabric of his world unraveled. The glitches were no longer fleeting oddities. They were becoming personal, intrusive, and somewhere, in the silent, unseen corners of the world, a janitor was being dispatched. A cleaner. A system patch, sent to address the anomaly that was Leo Vance. Chloe's concern for Leo escalated from a friend's worry to genuine alarm. He had always been eccentric, yes, but this was different. He was always talking about the log, showing her entries on his tablet. A park bench that spontaneously moved 3 feet to the left, a snippet of a news report replaying an identical segment from yesterday. See, Chloe? The timestamp here, then look at the news archive. It's a perfect loop almost. Chloe would humor him, forcing a smile. Leo, maybe you just need some sleep. Or less caffeine. Your brain is playing tricks on you. She tried to ground him, to remind him of the tangible world. The aroma of freshly baked bread from the corner bakery, the vibrant street art that adorned their city, the mundane rhythm of everyday life. She suggested yoga, meditation, even a weekend trip away from the city. But Leo was beyond conventional remedies. One evening, over what was meant to be a relaxing dinner, Leo's eyes were fixed on the restaurant's fish tank. A small, vibrant blue fish swam in endless circles. Suddenly it stopped, suspended mid-water as if caught in amber, its gills perfectly still. The other fish continued to swim, oblivious. Leo gripped Chloe's arm, his knuckles white. Do you see that, Chloe? It's stuck. It's a freeze frame. Chloe looked, squinted, then shook her head. I don't see anything, Leo. It's just a fish. As she spoke, the blue fish flickered, then resumed its swimming, as if the pause had never happened. Leo slumped back, defeated. They're getting better at hiding them, he muttered, more to himself than to Chloe. Chloe's heart ached for him. She saw a brilliant mind teetering on the edge, consumed by an obsession that she couldn't comprehend. She started subtly watching him too, for signs of a breakdown, not for glitches. She called his sister, consulted with mutual friends, all expressing similar worries. He's always been intense, his sister had said, but this is new. Chloe felt a growing sense of helplessness. She was the reality anchor, but the anchor was beginning to drag. Unbeknownst to Chloe, the glitches were indeed escalating, and they were no longer confined to Leo's immediate perception. A taxi she hailed would sometimes arrive with a driver who seemed to recognize her, only for a different driver to appear a minute later, apologizing for the delay. Familiar song on the radio would skip a beat, or briefly play a fragment of another, before resuming as if nothing happened. Her laptop would momentarily display a scrambled mess of pixels before snapping back to her design project. Chloe, however, interpreted these as minor technical hiccups, everyday annoyances. Her mind, unlike Leo's, instinctively sought and found mundane explanations, protecting her from the unsettling truth he was uncovering. Meanwhile, Leo, driven by a desperate need for answers, began to search the deep web. He typed in cryptic phrases, temporal loops, object displacement, reality errors. For weeks he found nothing but forums filled with conspiracy theorists and mentally unstable ramblers. Then he stumbled upon it, a heavily encrypted forum, hidden layers deep, requiring multiple proxies to access. The interface was stark, almost primitive, a relic from an earlier era of the internet. Here, amidst fragmented posts and paranoid warnings, he found Cassandra. Cassandra's posts were a jumble of raw terror and startling insight. They spoke of a system, of operators and of janitors who cleaned up discrepancies. The language was alarmist, but the details, they resonated with Leo's bug log. Cassandra described a repeating coffee cup, a stuttering conversation. The sheer specificity sent a shiver down Leo's spine. He sent a private message, a cautious query, citing some of his own more innocuous glitches. The response came days later, a long, rambling but utterly coherent message. You've seen them, haven't you? The cracks in the code. The universe isn't what they tell you it is. It's a program, and we're just lines of data. But some of us, we're anomalies. We see the source code, and once you see it, they can't unsee it. That's when the janitors come. They'll try to patch you, rewrite your lines, or delete you entirely. Move, change your patterns, break your routine. Don't trust what you see. Don't trust who you know. They'll use them against you. They're already watching you, Leo Vance. They know your name. The message ended with a series of coordinates, a dead drop location in a forgotten corner of the city, and a single instruction: look for the red umbrella. Leo felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Cassandra was a voice from the abyss, a chilling confirmation of his darkest fears. He wasn't going mad. He was discovering a terrifying truth, and the warning about the janitors. It brought a face to the nameless dread that had begun to shadow him. He had started noticing them weeks ago, these janitors. Not always the same person, but always the same type of person. The man who sat on the park bench, always reading a newspaper but never turning a page. The woman in the coffee shop, always ordering a black coffee, never taking a sip. Her eyes like polished obsidian, reflecting but not processing. The office worker who shared his elevator, always impeccably dressed but with an eerie stillness about them. Their movements too fluid, too precise. They were placeholders, human-shaped voids. Their eyes, Leo realized, were the most disturbing. They saw him, yet there was no recognition, no spark of sentience. They were simply there, observing. They were programs running in the background, their sole function to monitor and, if necessary, to neutralize. One morning, as Leo walked out of his apartment building, he saw a janitor. It was a postal worker, casually leaning against a lamppost, ostensibly checking his route map, but his gaze was fixed, unblinking, on Leo's front door. As Leo passed, the postal worker didn't move, didn't react. Only his eyes tracked Leo's every step. Leo felt a primal urge to run, but he forced himself to walk calmly, logically, as if nothing was amiss. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that the game had begun. He went to the dead drop location, heart pounding. It was a derelict phone booth in an alleyway, overgrown with weeds. There, tucked inside the broken coin slot, was a small red folded umbrella. Inside, a micro SD card. Back in his apartment, secured behind multiple firewalls, he inserted the card. It contained a single encrypted video file. The video showed a woman, gaunt and terrified, speaking directly to the camera. Her voice was a hoarse whisper. "My name is Sarah Chen. They call me Cassandra. I found the glitches. I saw the patterns. They're watching. They're everywhere. The world isn't real. We are trapped. Don't trust the loops. Don't trust the changes. They want to reset us, erase us." The video flickered, distorted, then showed a brief, terrifying shot of a janitor, the same postal worker Leo had seen earlier, entering a building identical to Sarah's. The video cut out. Leo stared at the black screen, his world imploding. Cassandra wasn't just a paranoid online persona. She was a real person, a former glitch finder who had paid the ultimate price. He was next. The glitches now intensified with alarming speed. His apartment lights would flicker, not just occasionally, but in a rhythmic, coded pulse that only he could decipher. Street sounds would spontaneously mute, leaving him in an unsettling pocket of silence, only to resume abruptly. Food would appear on his plate, different from what he had ordered, then correct itself. He was being actively targeted, the system tightening its grip. Chloe, noticing his increasing agitation and paranoia, tried one last desperate attempt to pull him back. "Leo, please. You're scaring me. You're talking about janitors and programs. This isn't you. We need to get you help." She held his hand, her touch meant to ground him, but Leo barely registered it. He saw the genuine fear in her eyes, and it stabbed him. He wanted to tell her, to make her understand, but Cassandra's warning echoed in his mind. "Don't trust who you know. They'll use them against you." He couldn't risk her. One afternoon, Leo was in his office trying to analyze a complex data set, hoping to find a pattern, anything that could give him an edge against the unseen operators. He glanced up, and through the glass walls of his office he saw a janitor. It was the coffee shop woman, standing perfectly still in the bustling hallway, her obsidian eyes fixed on him. She wasn't moving, wasn't blinking, just watching. Leo felt a surge of cold terror. He immediately started packing his things, a frantic energy possessing him. He had to get out. He had to disappear. He understood Cassandra's warning. The only way to survive was to become an unfindable bug, a ghost in the machine. He packed a small bag, His laptop, the micro SD card, some clothes, and enough cash for a quick escape. He knew he couldn't say goodbye to Chloe. It would put her in danger. He glanced at a photo of them, smiling, carefree. A pang of regret, sharp and agonizing, shot through him. He was losing everything. As he tried to leave the office, the building itself seemed to resist him. The elevator doors jammed. The security turnstiles refused his access card. He had to take the emergency stairs. A grueling, panicked descent. Each floor seemed identical. A repeating loop. The numbers on the emergency exit signs flickering between floors, trying to disorient him. Finally, he burst out onto the street, gasping for air. The city, once a comforting tapestry of predictable chaos, now felt like a living, breathing trap. He hailed a taxi, gave a random address far across the city, and slumped into the back seat, heart hammering against his ribs. He looked out the window, and there, walking casually on the sidewalk, was the postal worker janitor, and the coffee shop janitor, and a third, a construction worker, leaning against a scaffold. His hard hat perfectly aligned, his eyes utterly blank as they met Leo's. They weren't following him. They were already there, waiting. The system had anticipated his move. He changed taxis, then another, a desperate, irrational scramble through the urban labyrinth. He ducked into a subway station, losing himself in the anonymous crowd, his paranoia reaching a fever pitch. He saw janitors everywhere, a street musician, a homeless person, a tourist taking a photo. Their blank stares, their uncanny stillness, their effortless integration into the background were terrifying. He eventually found himself in a remote, almost abandoned bus terminal, miles from his home, miles from his office. He bought a ticket to a small, obscure town several states away, a place so insignificant it might not even be fully rendered by the system. As he waited for the bus, hunched over his laptop, he saw one final message from Cassandra, sent hours before her video had ended. It was just a single line, chillingly precise. They don't fix the glitch. They remove it. Be ready to become nothing. Leo looked up from his screen. Across the deserted waiting area, illuminated by the flickering fluorescent lights, stood Chloe. She was smiling, her usual bright, reassuring smile. "Leo, there you are. I was so worried. I tracked your phone. What's going on? Let's go home." Relief washed over Leo, so potent it almost brought him to his knees. His anchor, his reality. He started to stand, to embrace her, to tell her everything. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw it. The same subtle, unsettling emptiness he had seen in the janitors. The smile was perfect, but the light behind her eyes was gone. Her posture was just a fraction too rigid. Her movements too smooth, like a puppet on invisible strings. This wasn't Chloe. This was a sophisticated, frighteningly accurate simulation. "Trap, no," Leo whispered, backing away, his voice barely audible. "You're not real." The Chloe figure tilted her head, her smile unwavering, utterly devoid of warmth. "Of course I am, Leo. Come home. Let's fix this." Her voice was Chloe's, her mannerisms were Chloe's, but the essence, the soul, was absent. It was the ultimate, cruelest glitch, his best friend weaponized against him. A deep, bone-weary exhaustion settled over Leo. He knew then that the system wasn't just observing him. It was interacting, evolving. It was learning, and it was tightening its grip around the one thing he held dear. He had to run. He had to escape. Not just for himself, but for the hope of finding other glitches, of truly understanding what this reality was, and how to fight back. He was no longer just debugging reality. He was fighting for his own existence within it. The bus arrived, its headlights cutting through the pre-dawn gloom, a beacon into the unknown. Leo, the former high priest of logic, boarded, leaving behind everything he knew, everything he loved, a lone anomaly against a cosmic algorithm that sought to erase him. He was the bug in the system, and he was ready to run.